Hi, my name is Todd McAlery. I'm the instructor for APS 150 Ethics, a course for first-year engineers at the University of Toronto. This is Module 2A on professional conduct. The learning objectives for this module are discussion of professional misconduct and discipline, the use of the engineering seal, the duty to the public, and a case study. Professional misconduct is defined as any act that the profession deems unacceptable. Punishment is relative to the offense, but it can include revoking the engineer's license, and a license is necessary to offer or practice engineering services. So it's important not to be brought into discipline, not to lose your license, or you'll be looking for a different job. Negligence is defined as any act or omission, so it's something you do or something you fail to do in carrying out of your work that fails to maintain the standards that a reasonable and prudent practitioner would maintain in the circumstances. So the way that's worded, it's the behavior of others in your industry, in your profession, that define what is acceptable for you. So you have to be as good as all the rest of your peers, basically. Negligent actions could include failing to make reasonable provisions for safeguarding the life, health, or property of a person, that could be affected by the work for which the engineer is responsible. Failure to act or to correct or to report a situation where there could be endangerment to the safety of the public or their welfare. And failure to make provisions for complying with any laws, regulations, standards, codes, bylaws, rules, anything that's written down that should guide the work done by an engineer. Building codes are a good example. You've got to know them, you've got to abide by them. You can meet or exceed them, but you can't fail to meet them in the conduct of your work. Other negligent actions might include signing or sealing any report or drawing or document that wasn't actually prepared by you or people working directly at your request. And even if people have done the work for you, you still need to check it before you can put your seal on it. Once you put your seal on it, everybody, your client, the public, they're all entitled to rely on that document. And your reputation goes along with every time you use that seal. So don't stamp something unless you're absolutely sure that it meets your standards, the standards that are at least as high as those of the others in your profession. And negligence is also the failure to present the consequences of any action that might happen if the engineering judgment of the practitioner is overruled by a non-technical authority. The engineer might, for example, say, this O-ring on this space shuttle is not tested for the cold weather of this particular launch. The consequences of that might be that it could explode when the shuttle goes up in the air. If the engineer is overruled by a non-technical authority that says, well, we've got budget limitations, if we don't launch today, we're going to have to scrap the whole mission, we're going to take the risk and go ahead and launch today. Well, then at least the engineer has discharged their responsibility, they're not negligent, if they've disclosed the consequences of what could happen if their professional judgment is overruled by a non-technical authority. Harassment is behavior that's unbecoming of a professional and must be avoided. Harassment could include sexual harassment, but it could include bullying. It could include, teasing or just making people feel uncomfortable. We all work together, and engineering, more than other professions, involves people working together as teams. And we need to be able to work together well in teams without people feeling uncomfortable. Or unwelcome. Any kind of prejudice on the basis of race, creed, color, or religion is also a form of harassment. In general behavior, as a broad sweeping statement, the guide says that you should act in such a way that would be reasonably regarded by the engineering profession, or you should not act in a way that's disgraceful, dishonorable, or unprofessional. Well, disgraceful, dishonorable, and unprofessional are fairly vague terms, but again, if you do get called to discipline on any of these behaviors, you'll be judged by a jury of your peers, other engineers, and so you need to act in a way that other engineers would not consider to be disgraceful or dishonorable or unprofessional. If an engineer is guilty of any of these offenses of misconduct, they'll be reported and brought to a disciplinary committee. Professional Engineers Ontario provides the disciplinary committees. They sit and hear the case, and then they make a decision, and the decision is published in the engineering magazine called the Gazette. Here's an example of one of the pages from the Gazette that runs through what they refer to as decisions and reasons, which is the outcome from any case of discipline against any engineer. Engineers, once given their license, are also given a seal, which is a rubber stamp that has their name on it. And you put that rubber stamp on any reports, any drawings, specifications, plans, any professional document, any final deliverable to your clients that they're entitled to rely upon should bear your seal. And that's their assurance of quality that meets all of the applicable statutes. It's done to a professional high standard. It's correct. It's been reviewed within, with somebody competent within the disciplines that are necessary to perform the work. That's the guarantee. And you are given the seal, you're expected to use it, you're expected to use it appropriately, you're expected to only put that seal on documents that meet the high standards that are expected of engineers. So engineers have a duty to the public, and this is paramount. It's more important than any other aspect of their work. Doctors, lawyers, and dentists, they have a duty as well, but it's to a single individual at a time. For engineers, it's to entire groups of people. If, for example, you're designing a building or a bridge, any individual that goes in or out of the building or across that bridge could be potentially at risk if you fail to do your duty properly. So it's a broader scope of responsibility for engineers, and we should take it very seriously. So as a case study, there was a bridge built near Seattle, Washington, across the Tacoma Narrows around 1940. And that's a long bridge, and long bridges are expensive to build. So one way to make the bridges less expensive is to use a style of bridge construction that's called a suspension bridge, where you've got big posts from which hang big cables, and the cables basically suspend the bridge platform across which the cars drive. This particular bridge was designed in such a way that it didn't account for wind load. And because the Tacoma Narrows is situated in such a way that it's near the ocean, and winds blow up basically a valley that the river resides within, there's a funneling effect, and high wind speed is pretty common. So what ended up happening with this particular bridge is the wind load on the bridge caused oscillations, and the bridge was waving up and down. In some cases, it would get into a harmonic motion of a certain frequency that would just get larger and larger and larger, and eventually the bridge collapsed. This is an example of engineers who were negligent in not performing their calculations correctly, because the calculations for designing a bridge need to include those wind loads, not just the load of traffic going over the bridge. If you get on youtube.com and search Tacoma Narrows bridge collapse, you'll see an interesting video that shows the motion of the bridge, which I think you'll find interesting. And this is the end of Module 2A.